Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new episode. I know many of you use these videos to help you sleep, so before we begin, I thought it would be fun for everyone to say hello and leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. Your engagement really makes this channel special. And hey, if you enjoy getting your nightly dose of thrills and chills with us, why not hit that subscribe button below? It's the best way to never miss out on the latest terrifying tales. So kick back, relax, and let's get started. The groan of the rusty elevator echoed through the deserted floors of the Blackwood Hotel, a once grand establishment now swallowed by the shadows of neglect. As the night auditor, I was the sole guardian of this decaying monument to a bygone era. Most nights were uneventful, punctuated only by the creaking of the ancient building and the howling of the wind outside. Tonight, however, felt different. An oppressive silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the erratic thump of my own heart. It started with a single flickering light bulb on the third floor. Flickering, then dying, then flickering back on with an unnatural intensity. Against my better judgment, curiosity gnawed at me. Armed with a rusty flashlight, I stepped off the creaking elevator on the third floor. The air here was thick with dust and the faint, cloying scent of mildew. Each footstep on the threadbare carpet sent shivers down my spine. The flickering light cast grotesque shadows on the peeling wallpaper, and the ornate furniture seemed to cower in the gloom. As I reached the source of the flickering light, room 313, a wave of nausea washed over me. The door hung ajar, revealing a scene of utter chaos. Furniture overturned, clothes strewn across the floor, and a broken mirror lay shattered on the vanity. But it wasn't the disarray that sent a jolt of terror through me. It was the writing scrawled on the blood-stained wall in a language I couldn't decipher. Strange symbols, jagged and menacing, pulsed with an otherworldly light, even without the faulty bulb. Panic flooded my senses. I stumbled back, bumping into a heavy mahogany wardrobe. A sharp click echoed through the room, followed by a slow, agonizing creak. The wardrobe door swung open, revealing not clothes, but a narrow passage shrouded in darkness. A cold gust of air, carrying the stench of decay, wafted out. For a moment, I stood frozen, a battle raging within me. Flight or fight? The primal urge to run took over. I spun on my heel, heart pounding in my chest, and sprinted towards the elevator. But the elevator wasn't there. Just a gaping black hole where the metal doors should have been. Terror choked me. I stumbled back, the wall behind me cold and unforgiving. A rasping whisper slithered through the room, sending chills down my spine. "Welcome to your new home." The voice echoed in the darkness, devoid of human origin, resonating with a bone-deep coldness. The symbols on the wall began to glow with an unearthly intensity, bathing the room in an unearthly light. They writhed and pulsed, seemingly alive, forming grotesque shapes that danced on the edge of my vision. Then, from the darkness of the wardrobe passage, a figure emerged. Tall and gaunt, with skin as pale as moonlight and eyes that burned like embers, it moved with an unnatural grace. Its skeletal fingers clawed at the air, and the whisper grew louder, a chorus of voices filled with malice and hunger. I screamed, a raw, primal sound ripped from my throat. But there was no one to hear me. I was trapped, a fly caught in a web of unimaginable horror. The figure advanced, and as its cold, emaciated hand reached for me, the darkness consumed me. The next morning, the cleaning crew found the Blackwood Hotel locked from the inside. The elevator remained on the third floor, its doors inexplicably sealed shut. Room 313 was empty, no sign of a struggle, only an overturned chair and a single flickering light bulb. The symbols on the wall were gone, as if they had never existed. But somewhere, in the echoing halls and forgotten corners of the Blackwood Hotel, a presence lingered. A chilling reminder that some doors are best left unopened, and some secrets are better left buried. The radio crackled to life, a distorted country song battling with static. It was the only soundtrack to my night shift at the abandoned amusement park, Wonderland. The rusting Ferris wheel loomed against the bruised twilight sky, a skeletal reminder of happier times. My job? Security guard. My only real concern? Vandals. Or so I thought. The power had been out for weeks, thanks to a freak storm that left the park a tangled mess of twisted metal and shattered dreams. My flashlight, the only source of light, danced across the cracked pavement as I patrolled the silent park. The air hung heavy with the smell of popcorn gone stale and forgotten dreams. As I rounded a corner, a flicker of movement in the funhouse window caught my eye. My pulse quickened. Vandals weren't known for their love of distorted mirrors and creepy clowns. Curiosity battled with caution. This place was a certified nightmare fuel factory in daylight, let alone the suffocating darkness. Hesitantly, I approached. The stench of mildew hit me first, followed by the faint, sickly sweet scent of something rotten. The warped glass reflected back a distorted version of myself, tall and gaunt, eyes wide with apprehension. The sound of laughter, high-pitched and manic, echoed from within. Panic threatened to consume me, but the hairs rising on the back of my neck screamed intruder. Gripping my flashlight tighter, I pushed open the creaking door, a cold gust of stale air billowing out. The interior was a labyrinth of crooked walls and warped mirrors, each reflection a grotesque mockery of my own form. The laughter seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. I stumbled deeper, the floorboards groaning beneath my weight. Then, I saw it. A faded ticket booth, the glass booth filled with a carnival of monstrous, misshapen dolls. Their blank eyes seemed to follow me, and their vacant mouths stretched into grotesque smiles. But it wasn't the dolls that sent a jolt of terror through me. Behind the booth, in a tattered red dress and a crown askew, stood a girl. Her face, a mask of porcelain, was cracked and spiderwebbed, yet her eyes, impossibly blue, held a chilling spark of life. She held out a small, withered hand, the nails long and black. Her laughter filled the funhouse now, a desperate, pleading sound. "Help me," she rasped, her voice a chilling whisper. They took my smile, and my voice, and now... Before she could finish, a horrifying chorus of warped laughter erupted from the dolls, their faces twisting further into expressions of pure malice. The girl cowered behind the booth, her blue eyes filled with terror. In that moment, I knew this wasn't a prank. These weren't vandalized dolls. A primal fear took root in my gut, a sense of being watched by unseen entities. I stumbled backward, the rickety floorboards groaning in protest. Behind me, the distorted reflection of the girl reached out from the mirror, a long, skeletal arm with black fingernails, mirroring the movement of the girl in the booth. A cold hand grasped my shoulder, spinning me around. The girl in the red dress was gone. Only the empty ticket booth remained. Terror propelled me forward. I sprinted through the funhouse, the laughter of the dolls chasing after me, the distorted reflections in the mirrors mocking my fear. I burst out into the open, collapsing onto the cracked pavement, gasping for air. The radio crackled back to life, a news report detailing the unsolved disappearance of a young girl at Wonderland Park all those years ago. Panic choked me. The laughter of the dolls and the empty girl in the red dress echoed in my mind. As the first rays of dawn painted the sky, I knew one thing for sure. Wonderland wasn't just abandoned. It was haunted by something far more sinister than forgotten dreams. The hum of the industrial fridge was my only companion in the sterile, white silence of the hospital morgue. It wasn't my usual haunt. I was a janitor, night shift, assigned to the entire third floor, a sprawling labyrinth of abandoned wings. Tonight, Mrs. Hernandez, the regular morgue attendant, called in sick. Great. Just me and the stiffs. The air hung heavy, the metallic tang of disinfectant battling with the faint, cloying odor of decay. I hurried through the deserted hallways, my flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, each footstep echoing off the cold tile floor. The only light came from the emergency exit signs, casting an eerie green glow. Reaching the morgue, I steeled myself. Pushing open the heavy metal door, I was met with a wall of bone-chilling cold. Rows upon rows of stainless steel drawers gleamed in the harsh overhead lights. A low hum emanated from somewhere in the back, a ventilation system, I hoped. Panic prickled at the edges of my mind. I hated this sterile environment, so devoid of life. Just as I started to consider making a run for it, a high-pitched whine pierced the silence. It came from one of the drawers in the center aisle. My heart lurched. It couldn't be, could it? Slowly, cautiously, I inched closer. The whining grew louder, accompanied by a rhythmic thumping sound. My breath caught in my throat. There was definitely movement inside the drawer. Terror wrestled with morbid curiosity. Reaching out a trembling hand, I gripped the cold metal handle. My finger hovered over the release lever. What was I even thinking? Should I call security? But for what? A malfunctioning fridge? With a deep breath, I yanked the lever. The drawer slid open with a hiss. I froze, flashlight beam illuminating the pale, lifeless face of a young woman. Her eyes, however, were wide open, staring up at me with a look of utter terror. A scream tore from my throat, the sound raw and primal. But it wasn't her vacant eyes that sent chills down my spine. It was the rhythmic thumping. It wasn't coming from within the drawer. It was coming from beneath her. Panic seized me. I slammed the drawer shut, the metal clanging like a gunshot in the silence. I didn't dare look back. My feet pounded on the tile floor, my lungs burning as I sprinted for the exit. Reaching the hallway, I stumbled, slamming into a gurney. My flashlight clattered to the floor, plunging me into darkness. The thumping sound was everywhere now, a frantic, desperate heartbeat. Then, a cold hand clamped over my mouth, stifling my scream. A raspy voice whispered in my ear, "Help me, get out." It was her voice, the girl from the drawer. But it wasn't coming from behind me. It was coming from everywhere. The wind howled like a banshee outside the old Sunken Pines motel, the kind of place that peaked in the 70s and never recovered. Power flickered, casting long, distorted shadows across the dusty lobby. I shouldn't have taken this night shift, not with only 2 guests, a grumpy trucker and a woman who never left her room. But bills don't pay themselves. The silence was worse than the wind. It pressed in on you, broken only by the occasional groan of the ancient building. I spent most of my time perched on a stool behind the counter, a mug of lukewarm coffee cradled in my hands, eyes glued to the flickering security monitor. Then, a blip. Room 13. Nobody was booked there. My heart hammered against my ribs. I grabbed the flashlight, its beam cutting a weak path through the gloom. The door to room 13 hung ajar, a sliver of darkness peeking out. "Hello?" My voice came out as a squeak. "Nothing." Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The room was a mess, clothes strewn across the threadbare carpet, the single bulb swinging wildly. In the corner, a figure huddled beneath a threadbare blanket. "Can I help you with something?" My voice sounded shaky even to my own ears. The figure didn't move. Hesitantly, I inched closer, the floorboards groaning under my weight. As I got closer, the smell hit me, a sickly sweet cloying odor. "Sir?" I reached out a tentative hand. The figure shot upright, the blanket falling away. My blood ran cold. Its face was skeletal, skin stretched taut over hollow cheekbones. Its eyes were milky white, staring at me with an emptiness that sent shivers down my spine. A raspy whisper escaped its lips, a single word, "Help." Before I could react, it lunged. I screamed, stumbling back, the flashlight clattering to the floor. It grabbed my arm, its touch like ice. Panic surged through me, lending me unexpected strength. I shoved it back, its skeletal frame surprisingly light. I bolted, heart pounding in my ears, the echoing thump of its bare feet on the floorboards gaining on me. I burst out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I fumbled with the deadbolt, the metal cold against my sweating skin. It clicked. A moment's silence. Then, a scratching sound. It was relentless, like nails on a chalkboard, coming from inside the room. I didn't dare turn around. My gaze darted to the fire escape at the end of the hall. My only hope. Scrambling up the metal steps, I never looked back. The wind whipped at my face, the cold a stark contrast to the chilling heat radiating from the room below. I reached the roof, collapsing onto the damp tar. Below, the scratching had stopped. But a new sound filled the air, a low, mournful wail that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It sent chills through my very soul. As dawn painted the horizon with streaks of orange and pink, the wail finally faded. I clambered down, legs shaking, and ran. I don't know where I went, didn't care. All I knew was I had to get away from the Sunken Pines Motel, away from room 13, away from whatever lurked within. The police found the motel abandoned a week later. No trace of the guests, no trace of me. But sometimes, on a cold, windy night, you might hear a faint scratching sound, followed by a mournful wail, echoing from the deserted Sunken Pines Motel. And you'll know, with chilling certainty, that you're not alone.